like, well, it's not just a one-way street either, but we should be, I mean, there's so much we can do together, and there's so many exciting possibilities. Yeah, it's an exciting time right now, and there's so many challenges that I will touch on, but now that we are done trying to survive,
near my hometown,
thrive,
because I knew there were
kind of do the things that we know that are successful, like in our community. And yes, we are
still alive,
we are native neighbors.
and without, and quick, are these two little girls, you and your sister?
Did you get the answer? Did you realize?
Time is of the essence.
Yeah, we had like my own ministers, they were excited, but you can't. Did you enjoy doing genealogy too? When
That
you
was
did it?
interesting because even though I knew my first wife was doing it, I was engaged. And what made the difference is that my oldest daughter, who had lived in Maryland, I visited her and she took me out to this place in the west of Maryland, west of Virginia actually, where she heard this relative of Davenport that lived. And we were looking for that house. And we knew the name of it, so we were driving out. There it is!
Well, the good thing is, like, we were connecting, and I'll touch on that too, is like,
So
you know, the native
residents
community
of
in
this
Indianapolis
house
is super
were
active,
still
like
Davenport.
very,
this way drove up and knocked on the door and they said,
you know, dozens of
good to see
native
you.
blood organizations around here. And
Because they were expecting
They were
another John
expecting
Gavin.
John
So we
has
had
a
over
lot
the
of
house.
I was saying, I don't know if we don't do it, I can help make that connection, like,
That was- that
you know,
was-
we don't do a lot of houses.
So that
But I
Davenport
can see
was
this,
especially.
and hi there.
Hi Louise, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Good, I was so pleased to see that you were a speaker today.
And the house, the original Davenport purchased from George Washington's brother, Charles. So, it was all practice.
Oh, yeah.
This history sort of pops up.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, I get the regular newsletters.
And because it came in through either Boston
Yeah.
the Scotch.
Yeah, I recognize your name. Yeah, long time. Yeah,
Oh, it's just.
Yeah, it's.
A lot of history.
Stay, it's Elizabeth.
Yes, yes.
How's you? My friend Karen and Winchester.
No, I'm.
Oh, you're in. Oh. I thought you were Karen Ann. Okay, okay. Do you live close by? We used to have it. Both live in Oh,
Good morning.
And it's as though she left the building. And a single man moved in. And somebody don't go knock on his door and say, would you fix this for me? I could, but I don't. Maybe, but I feel it.
My cell phone here, and I have my cell phone to watch it.
she would never forgive me.
It's about 15 minutes.
I try to persuade her to make the walk every once in a while, and
Yeah,
I'll make her.
well, it's good for us, Marty, for sure.
But at any rate, you want to.
Oh, sure, come on, because if you haven't done questions, then you're for sure by 10. But she'll say, come on, go, it's not good for you, go. kids say, thank God for the my kids are scattered.
Oh.
Well, except that this one, the youngest, and he and his wife live in New Orleans.
Oh.
It's kind of fun to have them just try, well, because I like your, give me your name again. Sonia?
Institutions, do you want me to, should I just, I will stand here and
Okay, and I'll
to speak
introduce
into
you.
that? Sure, okay.
And get it started. Do you mind if I mention that you're Janice's doctor? Yeah, a lot of people know, I think, already. Yeah, but I better turn my phone off. Hi, Kathleen. Good morning, everyone. Woo! We're really alive here. Welcome to everyone. I'm Jane Cole, member of the Forum Committee. Glad to see you all here. My first thing is, when we get to questions and answers, I want to hand you a mic so that our people on Zoom or remote listening can actually hear the questions. So bear with me. I'll try to run the mic around and catch your questions when we get to that point. We're so excited to have Louise Matson here today. She is with the Division of Indian Work. She's a graduate of St. Olaf College. She worked with the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Twin Cities for years. She's been involved with the Big Brothers and Sisters of the Greater Twin Cities. She's done so many things in our Minneapolis community. She's worked at the Division of Indian Work since 2002 and became their executive director in 2014. And the little note for all of us is she is Janice Hardy's daughter, and I think some of you know that. But so I'm so impressed with her career and what all she's doing. So I will turn it over to Louise, and thanks, Louise, for being here.
Miigwech, thank you. So Buju, Louise Matson, Indigenous Kaz, Makwa and Dudam, Gawa Baba Kinikag, and Dunjaba. So as you know, I'm Louise Matson. I'm also Bear Clan and from White Earth Nation. But I'm also a proud Norwegian and Icelandic woman. And I am a lifelong resident of Minneapolis. I grew up in Ward 10, and I live in Ward 11, and I work in Ward 9. So I always say that I've never lived on my dad's reservation. He's enrolled at White Earth. I probably never will. But in reality, 70 to 80% of Native people are living off of reservations, or living in urban areas for a lot of the same reasons that people leave a small town. It's for opportunities, for jobs, for school, and then they stay. So we're extremely diverse in Minneapolis. We're really diverse tribally, and we're really diverse as far as we're multiracial people here. I do a lot of teacher training, and I'll tell the teachers in MPS, don't think you don't have any Native students in your class so they could look like me. They could look Afro-Indigenous. I've worked with people that are Lao and Dakota. So I'm just giving you context of who I am and my, my background. I came to Division of Indian Work 22 years ago. I clearly love my job, Bonjour, Seth. And I'm a teacher by training, so I came to run the youth programs and then became the ED about 10 years ago. So this is my passion, my life's work. It's been the hardest thing I've done, also given me the greatest joys of my life. It's my job. So I just want to touch on a little language things before we get started, because it's confusing, and I will do it to you too. So you hear people say Native, Indigenous, American Indian. Well, why are we still using American Indian? We know that is incorrect. We could spend a whole session on that, and it's really, I'm not a linguist or a lawyer, but it's basically, it is the legal term for our Native communities. It's in our constitutions, it's in all of our government documents, so we still use it all the time. So you'll still go to, there's still Minneapolis American Indian Education Department, Division of Indian Work, Minneapolis American Indian Center. We still use it. And it's also, I think, to a generational, that's what I was raised with. And the younger students, they'll use more Indigenous. And in fact, will use more, really want to be identified by their tribal nation. So I always tell people, you can't ask what someone wants to be called. And then here, we're on Dakota homeland. We know that. There's been a lot of talk about that. But you'll still hear Sioux used a lot. So just know when people say Sioux, they're talking about Dakota people. And Lakota people, they're even Nakota people. They're in this same group. It's just, like many of our names, our native names, we did not have a written language. So what was heard by like the colonizers or the missionaries, they wrote down what they heard. And so, an example that a lot of people have heard of is the Navajo Nation. In their language, they're Dene people. So when you hear the term Sioux, and they are still using it, that's really Dakota people in their own language. Same with, you hear Chippewa, Ojibwe, those are Anishinaabe people. That in our language, it's Anishinaabe, which means the people or first people. But we still use Chippewa tribe. And again, I think you hear more of that in a generational thing. As we have a lot of exciting language revitalization all across the country. Mille Lacs just did a Rosetta Stone in Ojibwe. And so as we see that, and as people understand and learn and reclaim languages, they're using, language terms that are in the language. So, but I apologize, because I will switch back and forth, and I'll say Indian Native. I do it all the time, and a lot of speakers do that. So I always like to start off with that. Because while we are in Dakota homeland, this is the ancestral homeland for a lot of different tribal nations, including mine, which is 7 Anishinaabe or Chippewa Ojibwe reservations, 4 Dakota communities. But I'm just going to give a little background for Division of Indian Work. A lot of you are familiar. Plymouth has been a long-time partner with Division of Indian Work, supporting Division of Indian Work over the years. And so I'm just going to give a little background on DIW and you can know where we're at, because we've had a lot of change that some of you might know about. And then I'm going to talk about, I'm addressing challenges in our community and initiatives, positive change. I want to be asset-based, because a lot of what we hear about my community is negative, and that's the press. And the press tends to do that in general, and I really appreciate a lot of the reporters and things that we work at, but it tends to be more about the bad things. And there's no doubt that we have challenges and the reasons why we have those challenges, but there's a lot of good things happening. And it's discouraging sometimes as a Native person when that's all that you see. When I see that and I think, where's the person that's going to Madeimakasca canoe gathering, where we have hundreds of kids canoeing around Madeimakasca and learning? You don't see that in the paper. So that's my little spiel. So Division of Indian Work is over 70 years old. It was started in 1952 to address relocation. Like I mentioned, that was one of the many policies to quote unquote solve the Indian problem. Move Native people off reservations, go into urban areas, get jobs, assimilate. And then no resources though, a lot of promises were made. So at that time, it was a faith community. And they became Greater Minneapolis Council of Churches. But Greater Minneapolis Council of Churches started DIW in 1952 really as a food shelf. And then on the St. Paul side, St. Paul Council of Churches started Department of Indian Work. And so there's a lot of confusion. We're totally different agencies. But, and then the Greater Minneapolis, or Greater Statewide Council of Churches took everybody else. So really, it was interesting to me to learn all this because it was never intended to be a long-term agency. It was going to be like help with the food shelf, help people get on their feet and stop. We'll do another initiative. But in reality, they started hiring Native staff. They grew the Native programs. They listened to community, those leaders, because community, we're the birthplace of the American Indian movement. So we have a lot of folks that came to DIW leadership and said, where's your Native leadership? What's going on? You should have that. So they changed their bylaws and established a separate Division of Indian Work Board that was majority Native. And we had our own mission statement. The only reason I knew about GMCC is my check said GMCC. DIW is really its own entity. We had a lot of strong female leadership that just grew it, in particularly Mary Ellen Dumas, who was a Ho-Chunk member. She established the youth programs, which is why I ended up there. So we had several really strong female leaders that just went like, well, we're just gonna grow it. And in fact, we became so large that we became the largest program of GMCC. And then in 2016, GMCC had a lot of change, and so we thought, let's separate. It's time. We should be a truly Native-run agency, because while we were a part of their agency and they had all these structures for leadership, they still had the 501c3. They still had, everything was in their name. And so we couldn't actually apply for some funding because like Administration for Native Americans, huge federal program, looked at the GMCC board and said that's not majority Native. But anyway, so we separated, they agreed, we agreed, took 2 years, we separated, and so now we're truly an autonomous Native-run agency. But I get the question all the time, like, what are you a division of? We're not a division of anything anymore. But we need to rename, but that's just another thing I just don't, I know what it took to transfer all those contracts. I don't want to deal with that. And people know us as DIW.
Just move the mic over.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. I walk around a lot. And I should say, raise your hand if you want to stop and have questions. I can tend to go on or veer. So I'm really proud, I'm going to talk about our challenges and our initiatives. So I love being at DIW. I'm really proud of being part of this community because I say a lot of times, yes, we have a lot of Native organizations here because there's so many Native people coming here from all over the country. And yes, we don't always agree, and we often compete for funding. But we partner so well together on so many things. It's exciting to me. And we survived COVID. It was really difficult. And my agency is on Lake Street, and we survived that too, and everything else burned down around us. And I'm tired of just surviving. It's time to thrive. And that's what's exciting that's going on in Minneapolis right now. I'll talk a little bit about initiatives that I love and that I think are pretty unique. So in Minneapolis, and it also includes St. Paul folks too, but we are primarily Minneapolis because a lot of agencies are located here also because we have Little Earth. Little Earth of United Tribes is the largest and oldest HUD housing for Native people in the country. And it's, you know, super close. And so we have a lot of Native people living in the Powderhorn Phillips neighborhood is kind of the heart of the urban Native community. Although we're all over in St. Paul and people are increasingly around in the first ring suburbs in particular. So we have an agency called the Metropolitan Urban Indian Directors Group. And so there's about 20, 30 of us that are directors of Indian organizations. And we meet monthly to talk about our challenges, to celebrate our successes, to plan community-wide events. We meet with elected officials. It's the place where I would say if somebody contacts me about like when they were doing public art at Madea-Makaska, come and present to the MUD group, because it's also convenient, because we're all in the same room. You don't have to go to all of us. But a lot of the work of MUD, though, is done in the subcommittees. And the subcommittee that I'm involved with, like I said, teacher by training, that I've been involved with for years is called Phillips Indian Educators. And, you know, we started that to be asset-based as well. So Minnesota has the worst graduation rates for American Indian students in the country. And so this group, we started meeting not to point the fingers at our institutions. We understand what happened. Like the institutions of education are not friendly to, they were destructive and genocidal to Indian people. So it's not that Indian people don't love to learn, aren't capable, smart, or the first scientists. It's just that the education system, particularly boarding schools, were not designed for our families. They were designed to again, solve the Indian problem, assimilate Indian people. So I'm happy to say, though, through initiatives that not just PI, but like-minded people are doing that include rigor, but culturally relevant lessons that include our students in the curriculum make a difference. So when I started with PI so long ago, graduation rates were at like 37%. And they inched all the way up to almost 50, still not good enough at all. But when we do rigor, when we do culture in the classroom, when we give teachers the tools to include Native people, they do better. We do better. And then COVID, we're speaking of our challenges right now, I think you all have heard and read the statistics, like COVID has really just hurt our kids. It has hurt everybody's behind in learning. They're behind in their social skills. We're seeing mental health issues like never before. And we have a lot of work to do. We need to re-engage our students. We need to work on making, reversing that trend and going back to healthy, happy students that have the skills to determine their own future when they graduate. So one thing we've done is we have an attendance campaign. And we, the boring adults, we called it the attendance campaign. But the Native Youth Advisory Council at MPS, they renamed it the Native Hero Campaign. So that HERO stands for here, ready, here every day, ready and on time, HERO. And then we used pictures, we had some money to do some advertising. So just to get people trying to do what we could do to re-engage students, go to school, be in school, and then when they're at school, we work with the teachers to make that classroom as welcoming and as inclusive as they can. So the PI group and the Indian community, we have a memorandum of agreement with the Minneapolis Public School Board of Directors. We think it's pretty unique because we'll get calls from all around the country about this agreement. It's not a legal document, but it is a document that has measurable results that we look at every quarter. We look at attendance data. We have monthly meetings with the superintendent. We have a liaison from the school board. The exciting thing that we have is teacher training for professional development, how to work with our students. Because we know teachers are overloaded, and we know that, if we're insisting that we want our us to be represented in curriculum, and we want people to teach culturally, that we need to help people with that. And there's a lot of curriculum that's been developed over time that teachers can use. They just need to know where it is, and they need to connect with the community, because the community is a huge resource. I have staff that go over to Hiawatha Leadership Academies every week and run their Native group, because they don't have a Native staff to do that. So that's how we can help. And so it's not to point the finger and say you're failing our kids. What am I doing? I'm a teacher and I've been around, so I'm responsible too. So what are we doing? What can we do differently? What can we do for our children? I've been working with some of the staff at DIW and at Indigenous Peoples Task Force to look at suicide and mental health, and we've been meeting with Mary Kunesh and Senator Morrison to sponsor a bill. So we'd like a bill, it's not a huge amount of money, it's not a big ask, to develop a curriculum that we can use to help address our mental health and suicide and our challenges that all our kids are facing. And we want it culturally based, and we want to do a train the trainer. It's a real easy bang for your buck when you can train one person that can then go back to their community and do it. They can be an existing staff. I'm really going into the weeds. So to me, that's exciting. Like, we are being proactive and asset-based with our youth. I mentioned Made Makaska, that is organized by community members in partnership with Minneapolis Public Schools. And so middle school kids will come there, usually late in the spring, so the lake is as warm as possible, because usually people end up in the lake. You know, and mostly not, you know, it's accidentally on purpose. I've been canoeing with kids and they're like, wouldn't it be fun if we tipped over? I'm like, no. Maybe for a little bit, but then we have to swim to shore, because I guarantee you we can't get in the canoe. Yes?
Are they still doing on-the-job training programs for students who might have different interests other than the mainstay programs, you know, for the students that you're concerned about?
Yeah, well, there's Step Up is a pretty exciting program. Oh, she was wondering about job training and off-the-job training, or different kind of job training on the job. And so I think I can point to Step Up, which is an amazing program that's citywide, and the woman who runs it, Achieve Twin Cities, is a Native woman, Danielle Grant. And that is where different agencies can have a paid youth worker, and they don't want it, it's not designed to be, you know, free help and just do something that's, you know, not worthwhile. So it's an exciting program during the summer, and honestly, that's what I get most calls about in the summer from youth. They're not looking for a summer program. We have one, but teenagers are looking for a job, and they're looking for, they're just looking for a job. I did too. So that is a great opportunity. That's a great program. It's very well respected. And then a lot of Native agencies have Step Up workers. We don't have one right now. We have in the past. But it's an opportunity for people to try different things. And it's supposed to be meaningful, not just I have an extra body to go make copies. You know, they're supposed to be learning. So I can give you the contact for that. I know that I think applications are already out for that. So those are a couple exciting things that are happening around youth work. And again, I just love the training that we do with MPS. And there's so much demand for that we can't meet it, because other districts are looking on how they can do it. So the whole day will be, we have to do a little bit of lecturing, like this, which is not as fun. It's, laying some groundwork for the teachers to understand, again, who are the Native people who are the Native people, and understanding how diverse we are. A little bit of the boarding school. I mean, we could talk about that for a long time. It just amazed me that a lot of our teachers don't know this, though. So it speaks to kind of like the teacher training, and that's another thing to look at. Like, we need to get that. People shouldn't be coming in the district and not knowing those kind of basic information. And then we encourage the teachers don't just do Native things in Native month. Either November is the federal month, May is the state one, and we'll really, like, I'll connect y'all. May is gonna go crazy. There's open house, the Indian Center's opening up again. They've been under renovation. You could probably go to an activity every single night, sometimes multiple activities. And so as a matter of fact, in the Native community right now, you could do that right now. You could go to language table. We have Lakota language table at DIW every week. You can go to Anishinaabe language table. You can go to ceremony. Every month there's like full moon ceremony, there's cedar ceremony. I just saw a flyer for baby moccasin making. I mean, there's things, you can be busy doing all these great things. Yeah, and all of them are free and they're all, led by Native people. So it's a really active and thriving community in Minneapolis and St. Paul. A lot of things going on. Yes.
Are you doing anything with early childhood education?
Yes, we do work with ECFE. Oh, are we doing anything with early childhood education? And yes, we are. So we have a program at DIW called Women of Traditional Birthing, and they do classes that are a mixture of like cultural activities with young moms and dads, teaching like maybe around the moss bag or things like that, but also work with ECFE to do those, setting the stage early for good learning and educational success for our kids. That program specifically works with them, but we also have really grown our child maternal health programs. That's really blown up all over the Twin Cities. So another exciting thing that we're part of is the Birth Justice Collaborative, and it's with Native community and then the African American community, and we're looking at, and healthy birth outcomes, and then setting that stage, especially like birth to 3, to make sure that the kids are getting everything that they need to be successful to get ready to go to school. And one thing that we do, at DIW, we have 40 trained doulas. And they're, it's exciting. I know, doulas work, everybody knows doulas. Anyone has a doula, it's successful birth, healthy birth. And then supporting that, a particular young mother. So we have had funding from the state and the city to train the doulas, so they get the COPE training, and then they get also cultural training. Again, it's difficult here because we have so many different people. Like, we can't offer everything. I don't know how we could do that. I was talking earlier, we have people apply, and I'll sometimes Google their tribal nation because I don't know, I don't recognize. We've got 500, 600 some federally recognized tribes in the United States. So we can't often say like if you're a Meskwaki mother, I don't really know Meskwaki birth practices, but we can try to find elders, and which we do. So we focus on Dakota and Anishinaabe since that's the majority of folks. And can help people with like, I want to smudge when baby's born. I want to sing some birth songs. I want traditional medicines. I want a cradle board. I'd like to keep the umbilical cord, all these cultural things. And then alongside we'll do car seat safety training, So it's this mixture, but that's like a lot of things in Native country are walking in two worlds, walking in foot in one world, foot in the other. But we recognize and want that we want to be upstream, and preventative is much easier than intervention. To get the kids, get the babies, help work with people. Every parent I know wants their child to be successful. I just, over the years, have met parents that something might be in the way, whether it's just that they need resources or they might be struggling with something. Otherwise, they want their children to be happy and healthy. So that Birth Justice Collaborative is super exciting, and we're going to do a pilot where we're going to have doulas trained in this family spirit curriculum, and they're going to go into the home, and they can be with them up to age 3. And then on the upper level is trying to get legislative things passed so we can pay doulas what they should be getting paid. And they've been doing a lot of work on that. To get that as a better, insurance will pay for it, but we also pay, we pay $800 for a birth, but they have to be with the mom before, they have to be at the birth, they have to do after. That's not a lot. We should pay more. So working on that. But a challenge for us, and I think for all nonprofits, is the stop and start of funding. And so part of the work that I do too, and that I also people say, how can I help? It's like, help us get to that level where the decisions are being made so we can advocate for what works. Because I was getting frustrated, like I'd see the contract and be like, whoa, and talk to the grant manager. They can't do anything about it by that point. So here's an example. You probably read that the legislature passed $6 million in food security work. $6 million for American Indian people. Well, it's $3 million each year, but I went to the meeting about it, and all the tribes will get that money non-compete, but I will have to compete for my money with everybody in the state, with all the other Native nonprofits. And I expressed my deep concern about that how is that? And I don't want to compete with my tribe. Why is it like that? And why, I get it, you need to have a competitive process, you need to screen people, but like I said, DIW's been around 70 years, 72 years, we have a food shelf, I have an audit, everybody can look at my financials, just give me the money. Give me the appropriations. And same with Department of Indian Work, they still have a food shelf, they've been around forever. We're serving Native people at no charge to any of the tribal nations. Why am I competing against Department of Indian Work for money, for food money? So but then the state, it's through DHS, the state says it's statute, there's nothing I can do about that at this point. So I'm like, we've got to get to the Capitol. And we have some amazing advocates at the Capitol, like we have a super friendly administration. Actually, the administration we have right now is super friendly to women and children, all women and children. But when we have someone like Mary Kunish, who actually helped us establish the first office for missing and murdered Indigenous women and relatives in the country, is here in Minnesota. Thank you, Mary Kunish. She's a champion for early education. She's a champion for getting people in the teaching field. So I really love Mary Kunish. But you know, she's making our voice heard. Having a lieutenant governor that's Native is extremely helpful. Like, representation matters. And so she's from Whitehurst. She's from my tribe. And then, interesting fun fact, we worked together 22 years ago. She had just graduated from the U. It was her first job out of college. And she wasn't there long because she went to Wellstone Action and then got into her career. But I helped her with her very first campaign, which was to run for school board. You know, and that's how, you know, and that's where we need, you know, we need Native people to run. And that's what Wellstone Action was teaching people, is like, where do you start if you're not like a Kennedy and you don't have this, like, you know, how do you even do it? But you start like with your local elections. And she was the first Native person on Minneapolis Public School Board. And so, and now we have Ira Jordan, who's been serving, but I don't think he's going to run again. So, so to me, that's where the decision is. The decisions are being made up there. But you know, the system that you know, the Capitol is not set up for Native people either. Like Peggy always talks about when she walked in first, the art that was there is depicting, you know, kind of every kind of awful thing that happened to Native people when people started moving into Minnesota. So, but an example of another asset-based thing that we've been doing to address that is the Urban Indigenous Legacy Initiative. So 16 of us have now for 3 years combined together to get Capitol money at the Capitol. Because a lot of the buildings in Minneapolis are in bad shape. They were repurposed already from something like American Indian OIC used to be a telephone distributor, telephone directory distributor. People don't even know what that is. The young kids are like, what? And then, you know, falling apart. You know, we're really lucky DIW's building is fairly new, so we had this campaign that was the faith community, a lot of faith community people and tribal communities raised money for our building. And then we've been really lucky to have a foundation that's helped us a lot. They upgraded our elevator, we did our roof, we did our HVAC, we've done a lot. I want money I have property right next to DIW that we used to run for transitional housing for teen moms. And it's not operational anymore. I was calling the house the money pit because it was built in 1909. It was just killing me. And, not appropriate or safe for young people anymore, babies, toddlers. So I want to tear it down. So last year we went and we thought, oh, let's be creative. And we partnered together and we went in a bill for $135 million, all of us together, from like $34 million for Minnesota Indian Women's Resource to $3.4 million for me. We thought it would be well received, but it was not. It was like, not in a bad way, but just saying you really shouldn't all be together in a bill. Maybe do that other things, but not this way. And we're only going to fund this. And what phase are you in? Which is right. Like, you're not going to get money if you don't have site acquisition. So all these things I learned, and I met with like Senator Pappas, and we got to testify, and so it was exciting and a learning experience. And we actually, in reality, 6 agencies got $14 million, but that's better than the year before where nobody got anything. So Wankan Teepee in St. Paul will finish their project. Indigenous Peoples Task Force is going to finish their project and build their building. Little Earth of United Tribes got money. I got $500,000 to do pre-planning with that house and some work at DIW. So, I have to go back. And so I'm learning so we've been meeting again, and we know this year isn't going to be a big, crazy year of stuff, but how do we try to make the case keep us funded? Because together we could afford to do a rally together. Together we could afford to do all the mailings and reach out to people to contact their legislator. Together we could take turns at the meetings, because that's another issue. Like, Native people can't get to the Capitol. They're working. Can't get there at the drop of a hat to run and testify. So I just love that, and I wish we had gotten more money, but, we got enough for some people to finish, and then the rest of us will keep going. And keep working on getting some funds. Also, equity and grant making is really a passion of ours and mine. So prior to COVID, we were starting to meet with commissioners, at that level, to ask them for priority funding. Like, why, if the disparity is so great, we should have, if our applications come in from a Native agency serving Native people, give us priority points. Why are we competing against the YMCA and Lutheran Social Services that have a whole development team? I have one, and I'm lucky, I have a full-time development officer. Most other directors I know are writing their own grants. So it's difficult, and so when I go to a meeting when the state talks about overdose deaths in Minnesota, and we are 29 times more likely to die of overdose deaths right now. So my question was, are we going to get 20 times more the money to fund the programs, the treatment, and what we need? I don't think that we will. But, let's if we want to eliminate disparities in Minnesota, we have to put go put the funding behind it. Like, there's so many agencies that know what they're doing. Let them have the money, and not just me. And again, I understand, there's been a lot of stuff in the news about fraud, but most of us at the Indian agencies I work for, you can find us on our audits online. You can go and look about we've been around, in other words. Like, we have a history. One of the agencies that didn't get money this last session was American Indian Community Development Corp., Mike Gozzi's agency. He wanted money for a 100-bed treatment facility, but he didn't have site control. He didn't get anything. We need that. We needed it last year. Like a lot of communities, we're suffering from this opioid epidemic. To me, that's the crisis of our time right now. And it's not just impacting the Native community, it's impacting all of us. And I don't know the answer to it. To me, it's like the worst drug ever. It's this fentanyl and opioids. And so to me, I'm like, we need to do like we did with COVID, like Operation Warp Speed. Let's do Operation Put Our Minds Together. But it's complicated. The issue is so related to mental health issues, related to housing, related to, everything is connected. So, you know, I wish Mike had gotten the money, because we could use that 100-bed treatment facility right now that would be culturally based. Yes?
So our church friend, Jim Bear Jacobs,
Yeah.
has had some pretty specific and pretty pointed suggestions of what churches should be doing because of our ugly history with Native peoples. And I'm wondering what your take on that is. What can a church like Plymouth, where should we start? What do we do? How do we move from one side to the other side?
Great, we were just talking about this before. This is what you should be doing, for one thing, is having Native people come, different perspectives to tribal leaders, coming to talk to your church, talk to your members. I think you have committees that are focused on different initiatives. Come to DIW, come out into the community, work with us to get to know Native people, because we're relational. So, you know, people ask me all the time, I'm like, well, look at the back of the circle, for one thing. It's our Native paper, it's online. There's all those things I mentioned, they're out there. You're welcome to go there and meet Native people, and kind of what's your spark, what's your individual passion that you can help with. A lot of us, like, I talk to churches about, help me with that elected official, connecting. I don't have those skills. I could use time and talent for people that know how to do that can help with a campaign, that can help us get a bill written. You know, there are a lot of Native folks that do it really well, like Joe Hobart at AIOIC, but they've been teaching me. But there are people in congregations that have things we can develop a relationship. And I don't want it to be just, what can the church give to us? It needs to be like, let's do it together. I've had church members help me connect with other faith communities, because a lot of social justice work is being done in faith communities. So when we separated from GMCC, we lost a lot of those relationships. And then, you know, I just tried to survive COVID, and now I'm like, I need to reach out to people that really care about this work. And then doing things side by side together, planning, you know, these initiatives that I talked about, like Native Hero, teacher training. Could we work together on PD? But, and understanding what's going on in Minneapolis, you know, is not all negative. But getting out there, having me come here. I always say, too, you're welcome to DIW. Have meetings at DIW. Meet the staff there. See what kind of strikes a spark that you want to work with. Like you do like if people have a passion around birth work, get to know our staff, and then help us, again, advocate to that. I said that stop and start funding, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. How about just appropriating agencies? Like we could use that voice. And we're not a lot, we're 1% of the population. We need numbers, and we need people that are good at it and can be vocal for us too, that can be allies. And I do welcome, we've had Plymouth committees come and meet at DIW. So please come, and you can you can see our building and meet some people. What happens so many times, why I say what's so important, why like people, anyone can use any food shelf. Why should DIW keep having a food shelf? Okay. Well, I would say our Native people go, and they're always the minority. They never see themselves when they go places. So to walk in a food shelf that it's Native staff, there's Native art, there's Native food. They're not the only sole person. It's tiring. So let's have something that's just for us.
You touched on 2 things I want to bring up. Now, one way in, I've been involved with the Circle since the beginning, and the Circle's the best Native newspaper in the country. It's here. Subscribe to it. You can get it, for those of us from the last century who like stuff on paper, subscribe to it. It's real easy to do. It's also online every month, and you have a real window into what's going on in the Native community, particularly in the Twin Cities. The second thing, this is a pitch, but also you mentioned art. Mm-hmm. Everybody put on your calendar, go to the Catherine Nash Gallery at the University of Minnesota for the opening exhibit of the George Morrison Center for Indigenous Art. I'll tell you, the show will rock your world. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it opened last week. I was there again today, or not today, yesterday, and 11 to 5, Tuesday through Saturday, I think the gallery is open. It's just a stunner, and it'll make you feel, I mean, it's astonishing. And there's so many wonderful Native artists in our part of the world, and more coming all the time.
Yeah.
The younger people, Jonathan Thunder and the rest, it's just, do not miss it. It's just terrific. And there's a parking lot right across from the entrance, so you can go, no problem parking there. So that's, and do you do art programs? Is the
Yes, yeah, and I saw you at the opening, but it was so crowded. I have to go back, it was so crowded. But to me, that again, like, God, we have so many amazing artists, and we just had In Our Hands photography exhibit at MIA. There's a gallery on Franklin. Always has art going. We have Common Grounds. All My Relations, and Indian Center will have a gallery too when they open up. New Native Theater is having their next show is Bear Grease. It's like the native version of Grease. I'm super excited. I think they're having it at Gremlin Theater. So New Native Theater is another one that is in the Urban Indigenous Legacy Initiative. They don't have a home theater. They want to be with the Indian Center. And right now they have a little room at DIW, that's their office, but they have their shows at different theaters. They need a theater space. But there's, we have Native authors go to Birch Bark Books. I'm always like, no, I don't work for Louise Erdrich, but I am always like promoting Louise. Our Hyde Erdrich is our first Minneapolis Poet Laureate, and amazing woman, really talented author in her own right, and kind of like multimedia artist too, and so, it's pretty exciting. So all these things that are happening and that you can go to and meet all these people, but not just in academics, but businesses too. We have just a lot of things happening. So it's exciting to move beyond this past 2-3 years, because I was sharing, we were highly vaccinated in the Native community, which is a little interesting based if you look at the history, like when Native people and institutions of, medical institutions, but the state did a really good job promoting vaccines, and they hired Native ad agencies and Native artists to promote, and the theme was, we protect our elders, so the elders are so respected. And so we got vaccinated. I mean, White Earth vaccinated all of Monoman County up there, like they're vaccinating Indians and non-Indians. But we had a lot of death because of our comorbidity. We have a lot of health disparities and diabetes and heart. So we've had a lot of loss in community. I've had a lot of family loss, and the staff have, and it's been hard. And we still have people that are, it's still here. But we've just moved beyond trying to survive it to thriving again, and all these activities that are, American Indian Cancer Foundation just had their first in-person powwow again out at base camp, in person from, it's hard to do that stuff remote. Sorry.
Thanks for all this good information about the organizations and the projects. So at Plymouth, we have several justice groups who are striving to be more connected to the Native American community, the American Indian community. And one of the things that I think we lack are personal relationships. Mm-hmm. And you've maybe already answered this, saying come to programs. Mm-hmm. I mean, we look at our immediate neighborhood. We know there are many Natives who live in the community, and we would love to have some conversations, mm-hmm. in addition to the important organizational work you're talking mm-hmm. about. Is that something that you can help us figure out?
I can, and I will, and like to your point too, like people, it is relational, and also you might have a different passion. I was just thinking, we have the Indigenous Food Network, like people that might be interested in food justice. Because I do get people that call me for a lot of things, and if I don't know, I know who to ask, and I know who might be doing the kind of things you might be interested in doing. like I mentioned, like, is it birth justice? Is it, I'm about food security and all the projects that are around, you know, Dream of Wild Health has a farm out in Hugo. So we have, a lot of Native people, but we really need non-Native allies to do that work. But people will, if you email me and you have something, and if we don't do it at DIW, I know who does, and I can find out who does and connect you with that director or that staff to just really get involved in whatever is your passion around whatever work you need, you know, and if, or, oh.
Louise, you mentioned in passing a little while ago that natives were among the first scientists. So in addition to art, say a little bit more about that.
Well, if you think about it, you know, and I think about it every winter when it gets really cold, I'm like, our people survived and thrived in this. Understanding, you know, harvesting, understanding how to preserve food, understanding medicines. You know, people call that bog out after Bemidji and up in Red Lake, like the native pharmacy, like all those plants, and people are still doing that work. We try to tell the kids, like, we didn't go to Walgreens and get that aspirin. You know, people give, you know, cedar tea for healing. So all those things that, you know, like a scientist like Jim Rock will talk about, all the things that we lived through and survived and understood, you know, taking care of the Mother Earth. Like, I have Hope Flanagan is a well-respected, she is a plant teacher, and she always taught our kids, like, you don't take the first plant you see, and you don't take the last plant you see, and no one should see that you were there either. No one should have known you picked. So those kind of environmental teachings. But I also say, too, like, when, you know, we have some curriculum that, you know, what a great way to teach math and be engaging is to teach about plants, plant medicine, recipes, growing plants. It's engaging. I think, in general, our educational institutions don't do enough experiential place-based learning. That's how all kids learn better. So I'm really digressing off of that, but...
Hi. You said very early that the media always focus on negative things, reporting on Indian community members. I know that I've read that the record of police brutality against people of color is proportionately worse for Native Americans than for any other community. Mm-hmm. But I don't hear about it in the press. Are they not reporting on that?
Well, I haven't seen articles about that either. I think, you know, like I mentioned, we're the birthplace of the American Indian Movement. American Indian Movement started to address police brutality because police would take Native people and beat them up down by the river or put them in their trunks. People remember that when that was in the news? And so that's why, but then when, after George Floyd was murdered, who was going around protecting agencies like DIW, the American Indian Movement? Who went to Norway House on Franklin and protected them? The American Indian, we understand police brutality, but still understanding that we need to keep our agency, we need to be kept safe. So I personally, we need more police officers. We need Native police officers. I'm for having policing. In Minneapolis, I could use some help, you know, on Lake Street. We just had someone's Kia stolen again, and the police do not come, and because they're so short. So what I was just at the convention center for a City Minneapolis meeting and was talking with the transportation director, and then Chavez was there, Councilmember Chavez, and talking about we need police that aren't going to kill us, but we need police that are peace officers, and we need Native police. They need to recruit. So it's so complicated, but you're right, and that's, you know, why American Indian Movement started in the first place.
We have one last question. Yeah, we do. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just wondering, is there a central listing of all the community events that we might be able to tap into?
Well, the Circle is great online. There's also, and you can email me, there's a Minnesota Indian listserv, and it's moderated by the University of Minnesota, and that goes nationwide, but that's where like I'll post my jobs, but people will post all the things that are coming up. And May, like I said, May is a great time to get out and about in Indian country because there'll be open houses, we'll have a kickoff parade May 1st that'll start at Cedar at Little Earth, and we're gonna end at the Indian Center for their grand opening. Yay! Yeah, so we're just thrilled. You know, that building was built in the 70s, and every time it rained, there'd be buckets out, and they serve 10,000 people a year. So they have this beautiful new building. It's going to be nice. So that's a big one.
How about a big round? It doesn't feel like...
Miigwech for having me.
Am I on here? Yes. I am? Oh, it doesn't sound like it. Thank you so much, Louise, for being here. And I just love our connection with Plymouth here. This is so lovely. Yeah, really nice. Next week is quite important, and I'm hoping you're looking at the paper. I noticed several letters this morning about the North Star Act, and it is the issue of immigrant neighbors being safe from the unrestricted federal overreach. So I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth going on, and we have Adriana Sorello plus, and I'm not sure who the other person is, a legislator that is working on this act, the North Star Act, will be here next week. And so hopefully you'll come, and 10 o'clock our usual time. So thank you much, and we'll see you again. Thanks. Oh, Louise, thank you so much. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
You just-
I like better speaking than trying to do slides,
Yeah,
because I get
no,
distracted and...
Well, I mean, and you've got it up here, it just flows. It just flows out.